Chapter 13. Home, Wishing Chair, home. Mr. Grimm stared angrily at Pixie, who was still waving his wand to keep the teacher from coming any nearer to him. "You can't get your toys, so make up your mind about that," he said, "and stop waving that ridiculous wand about. Its magic will soon run out." Pixie himself was a bit afraid that it would. It was a very new wand, and it hadn't very powerful magic in it yet. "I think we'd better go before the wand's magic wears out," he said in a low voice to Peter and Molly. They darted out of the door, and Mr. Grimm followed. But just outside the door, Mr. Grimm ran into a crowd of brownies that popped up from nowhere quite suddenly, and over he tumbled. When he got up, the children and Pixie were nowhere to be seen. Mr. Grimm began to run down the garden again, but once more he was tripped over a mass of brownies. They were not a bit afraid of him now, because Pixie had taken his stick, the wand. Pixie and the others raced to find the wishing chair. Where was the bush that they had hidden it in? Oh, there it was. They ran to the bush, but oh dear, the chair was not there. "One of the brownies must have found it and taken it," said Pixie. Just then Winks ran up and pulled at his arm. "I found your wishing chair and I hid it in the shed," he said. "I was afraid Mr. Grimm might see it if he walked around the garden. Come along, I'll show you where it is." He took the three to an old broken-down shed. The roof had fallen in at one end. There were no windows to the shed, and so it was very dark inside. Pixie groped his way in and immediately fell over the wishing chair. He felt the legs anxiously to see if the chair still had its wings. Yes, thank goodness it did. The wings waved gently as they felt Pixie's anxious hands. The chair creaked softly. Pixie knew it was glad to have him again. "Wishing Chair, we must go quickly," said Pixie, and he climbed onto the seat. "Come on, Peter and Molly, quickly, before Mr. Grimm comes." "What about Winks? Aren't we going to take him too?" said Molly. "Oh, would you really?" said Winks in delight. "You really are very kind. I don't like this school. I've been trying to escape for ages." He was just about to squeeze into the chair with the others when somebody appeared at the doorway. It was Mr. Grimm. "So here you are," he said, peering in. "You're all complete with a wishing chair too. I might have guessed that was how you came. Well, I'm going to lock this door so you won't be able to fly out, and there are no windows at all." Winks leapt off the chair and ran to him. He tried to take the key from Mr. Grimm's hand, and the two struggled at the door. "Fly out, where the roof has fallen in. Fly out there," suddenly shouted Winks. "The chair can just squeeze through it." And the chair rose up into the air and flew to where the roof had fallen in. It got stuck halfway through, but Peter broke away a bit more of the roof, and the chair suddenly shot through and out into the open air. "Oh, poor Winks, we've left him there," cried Molly. "We can't leave him." "Go on, chair, fly off with them," shouted Winks from below in the shed. "Don't mind me, escape while you can." The chair flew out of hearing. Pixie and Peter were very silent. Molly wiped her eyes with her hanky. "I think we should have taken the chair back down and tried to help Winks," she said. "I feel it was wrong of us to leave him." "Oh, we'll go back for him," said Pixie, taking Molly's hand. "Of course," said Peter. "But we couldn't possibly risk going back down into danger when we knew Mr. Grimm was so angry. We'll go back for Winks, don't worry." "Oh, and what about our toys, too?" said Molly with a sniff. "I do feel so sorry for Winks, and it's dreadful to have to leave Rosebud behind, too." "And my engine," said Peter gloomily, "and all of our marbles and our soldiers." "We'll get them all back," said Pixie comfortingly. "You wait and see." The chair took them back to the playroom, flapping its wings strongly. They really were beautiful big wings. Molly was glad they were, because now that she and Peter had grown heavier, she felt that the chair really did need to be stronger. They arrived at the playroom and they flew in at the door. The chair gave a creaking sort of a sigh and set itself down in its place, and its wings at once vanished. There, the wings have gone already, said Molly, ready to cry again. So now we can't go and rescue Winks today. Well, that's a pity, said Pixie. We shall just have to wait until it grows its wings again. Anyway, it will give us some time to make a plan for getting back our toys, too. That will be difficult, you know, because if the storeroom is locked and Mr. Grimm carries the key on his key ring and carries it about with him, I don't see at present how we can rescue the toys. Mother's voice was heard calling down the garden, "Children, children, it's past tea time, and you didn't come in for dinner either. Where are you?" "Oh dear, now we shall have to go," said Molly. "And we haven't planned anything. Pixie, come and tell us at once if the chair grows its wings again, and do try to think of a good plan." "Come and see me again tonight if you can," called Pixie. "I may have a visitor here who will help us." Mother called again rather impatiently. The children fled. Fortunately, Mother seemed to think that they had had a picnic lunch down in the playroom, and she didn't ask any difficult questions. "I was sorry to send you out of the room this morning," she said, "especially as I expect you were not really naughty, but just nervous, and so dropped the biscuits and the coffee. Never mind. I expect that you were glad not to have to stay with my visitors." "We were, rather," said Molly honestly. "And I expect you were glad that we kept out of your way today, Mother, really." "Yes, now have your tea," said Mother. The children wished that Pixie was with them. He had had to go without his dinner at Mr. Grimm's school, and so he must be very, very hungry. Perhaps he would go out to tea with one of his pixie friends in the garden and have a good meal. "Now, Daddy and I are going out tonight," said Mother, when they had finished. "Put yourselves to bed at the right time, half an hour after supper, and don't lie awake waiting for us, because we shall be very, very late." "All right, Mother," said Peter, at once making up his mind to go down to the playroom after his supper just before they went to bed. Pixie's visitor might be there, and it would be fun to see him, for Pixie's visitors were always interesting and sometimes very exciting. Mother put on her lovely evening frock, and then she and Daddy said their goodbyes and went. The children did some jobs that Mother had asked them to do, and then found that it was supper time. Jane brought them in bananas cut into small slices, scattered with sugar and covered with creamy milk. "Ooh," said Molly, "this is one of my favorite suppers." After supper, they slipped down to the playroom. Pixie wasn't there. There was a note left on the table, though. "Gone to have supper with Tickles. Felt very hungry after having no dinner. Be back later. Can you come and meet my visitor at 9:30 if you're not asleep? It's very important. Love from Pixie." "I know, Peter," said Molly. "Let's go to bed now, and then we can slip out for half an hour and meet Pixie's visitor without feeling guilty. We simply must meet him if it's important." So they put themselves to bed half an hour earlier than usual, and both children went to sleep. But Peter awoke at 9:30 because he had set the alarm clock for that time and put it under his pillow. When the alarm went off, muffled by the pillow, he awoke at once. He slipped on his dressing gown and went to wake Molly. "Come on," he whispered. "It's 9:30. Let's go." Molly put on her dressing gown too, and the two of them slipped out of the garden door and down to the playroom. They peeped in at the door. Yes, Pixie's visitor was there, but dear me, what a very, very surprising one. And when we read together next, it will be chapter 14, Mr. Blackie's Strange Army.